Hi everyone, welcome back. So what we're going to learn about for the next few weeks is we're going to learn about nutrition. And the textbook that I will be using to go over nutrition is this one right here, Nutrition for Dental Health. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with Chapter 1. Chapter 1 is very basic. It just goes over, the basics of nutrition and the digestive system. So that's what we'll look at. We'll do a few activities in class, but just to get your brain thinking, I want you guys to think about how many times do we stop for fast food? I am guilty of this. On my way to work, I'll go and get a coffee from Tim Hortons or McDonald's, or, sometimes for lunch, I'll stop by at a fast food place and I'll grab some, something to eat. And, it's convenient, but is it healthy, right? And let's think about what happened before? What happened with when our parents and grandparents were our age? Were they doing this? Were they going through drive-thrus all the time? I mean, I don't even know if it existed in some places, right? Were they going out for dinner every week or every day, or depending on their habits? So what's interesting to note is now that we're in the 21st century, the food industry is changing drastically. Family dinners are not as common. And think about this. Do you guys have family dinners? I mean, I'm hoping you do. But when I look at my family dinner, I'm going to be honest here. I have my device. My husband has his device. My kids are on their iPads. And I think about, I mean, I need to set rules. And sometimes I'll set rules, but I won't follow through, where, rules such as no devices on the table. Let's have a family dinner. And so it's changing. People are having dinner with, while watching TV or with their iPads or their phones in front of them. I'm guilty of this too. We have a very busy schedule. My kids have activities after school, and so sometimes dinner is eaten in the car. Breakfast, if I'm dropping them to school, sometimes they're just munching on breakfast in the car. So it's not like my kids are having proper meals, and myself too. I feel like I don't have time. So it's just, I find meals that are easy, food that's easy for me to eat while I drive to work, for example. And so when I was reading this chapter, I was like, okay, there are so many habits that I need to change. And, as we're going through this chapter, think about habits that maybe you need to change as well, because I can tell you there are numerous habits that I have to change. And look at it. As we're driving, look at how many fast food restaurants are there. It just shows how convenient it is, how tempting it is to just drop in to any one of those as we're driving or as we're coming home. And we all know fast food is not healthy, right? So it's not a great way to get nutrients in our body. But if you look at where we are right now, it's so easy to access fast food. And sometimes it's so convenient. So these changes in having more fast foods and letting go of family dinner is not good, right? It's not always good because, well, now, as we know, studies show that people are becoming more obese, and part of it has to do with our sedentary lifestyle. We're always sitting. I look at myself, my job, for example, if I'm teaching online, which I have been doing during COVID, majority of my day, I'm just sitting on my computer. I'm not, walking. I'm grateful that now that we're back in person, I will be kind of walking in the building and then walking in class as well. So hopefully this lifestyle will kind of diminish, and I'm forcing myself to work out as well. But what I'm trying to say here is, in general, we recognize the importance of healthy eating. We recognize the importance of exercising, especially, right, because we have this type of lifestyle where we're just staying still. So we really need to be mindful that if we are doing this, what are we doing to balance this out? Are we exercising? Are we eating right? So you can see here, family time, meal time is disappearing fast because we're always on the go. So nutrients, this is essential. There are lots of nutrients we're going to look at that are out there, and these nutrients are really good because what nutrients do are they're chemical substances that give our body energy. So when we eat something, it'll digest in our body and it will give us energy, and so we want good nutrients in our body. So if we look at our human body, we have these elements: oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen. So these elements are in our body. And then when we eat something, like protein, for example, and an example of protein, I'll actually show you a picture. Example of protein or like meat products, eggs, shrimp, that kind of thing. So if we eat protein, it breaks down into nutrients. It breaks down into elements like carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen. If you eat carbohydrates are bread, right? Like donuts, potatoes, prestos, like these are carbs. And later on, we're going to go into a lot of detail about all these different nutrients. There's 6 main ones that we're going to look at. But if we eat that, what does it break down to? It breaks down into carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen. Now, yes, it breaks down, but how can you memorize this? So here's a good trick. If you look at the word carbohydrate, you see the C and the O and the H. So C for carbon, O for oxygen, H for hydrogen. So that's how you can memorize that. Carbohydrates give out these elements: carbon, oxygen, hydrogen. Fats, also known as lipids, also give out COH, so carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, but their order is a little bit different because there's more hydrogen than carbon than oxygen, but they're same elements, right? And with protein, the only exception is now we have nitrogen included. And so the way I remember this is protein has an N for nitrogen. So that's how you can remember that in addition to the carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, there's also nitrogen. So these are the 6 major nutrients. We will go over this later. Again, this is the breakdown. So it's carbohydrates. We know it's carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. And remember, C for carbon, O for oxygen, H for hydrogen. Water, if we look at the breakdown of water, right, it's always H2O, which means hydrogen and oxygen. And hydrogen is first because there's more hydrogen. There's 2 hydrogen, for example, and then 1 oxygen. So the higher the element, the more the element, that's why it's the first word that's there. Protein, there's more carbon than there's hydrogen, then there's oxygen, and then nitrogen. So let's see what else we need to. Okay, so this slide is saying that if we eat too much food from one category, so let's say we eat like, I don't know, a lot of carbs. Okay, I'm guilty of that. I love carbs. Let's say we eat a lot of carbs. So like pizza, for example. If I'm eating a lot of pizza, or if I'm eating a lot of croissants, for example, I'm gonna fill up on that, and then I won't fill up on, it'll squeeze out all the other foods. I won't fill up on my vegetables, on my fruits. Like there's stuff that we need to incorporate. In fact, I think the next slide, this slide over here tells you this is how our plate should look. And later on, we'll go into more detail about the Canada's Food Guide. So the textbook is actually US based, right? And so the textbook will talk about the My Plate, which is very similar. It's similar to this, where they have fruits, they have vegetables, they have grains, and they have proteins flipped over. Like when you look at the picture, it's different, but it essentially is the same idea, where we should have more vegetables and fruits. So if you look at my example of my dinner example, where I'm just having pizza, maybe with just like 1 or 2 vegetables, is that like, am I really meeting everything? Right? Like we have to really think about, my whole plate should be, or my half the plate should be vegetables and fruits, and with the pizza, not necessarily that. So we need to balance it out. We need to make sure we follow these guidelines, and we will look at that as we progress through the course. Here's an interesting, I like looking at this picture, which is from the textbook, where it shows the popcorn. It's the popcorn we get when we go to see movies. And so this is what we're served. But this is 1 serving. So really, we should be eating this, not that. This is what when we go, to a fast food restaurant and order a burger, if we order this burger, that's like a crazy amount of calories. That's 540 calories, which means that you got to walk for 100 minutes in order to burn that 540 calories. 100 minutes, just imagine that. It's crazy. And so given that we are more sedentary, we're not, active as much as before, we really, really need to be mindful of what we eat. There's this thing called consumption norm. Consumption norm means that it's like, what should be the proper amount to eat? And people think that if I'm given a huge bowl of popcorn, then that's my consumption norm. That's what I should eat. But that's wrong. What I should eat is the right amount. So consumption, the actual definition of consumption norm is the proper amount of food to eat, the proper amount of food to eat. But people assume that, oh, consumption norm is, okay, whatever is put in front of me, that's what I have to eat. Okay, I'm guilty of this. And I do this to my kids, and I really should. And I do this because my parents did this to me. They would force me to eat whatever is on the plate. I must finish whatever is on my plate. If not, if I don't, oh my gosh, it's a huge deal. Like I have to finish everything that's on my plate. And that is wrong, because I mean, yes, it's important to finish everything on the plate, but as long as what you put on your plate is very little amount, if we force ourselves to finish what's in our plate, we're just gonna, get into a lot of health issues. We're forcing ourselves to eat when we're full, and that's not, good. So what they're trying to say here in the textbook, and I'm sure it's common knowledge now, is that when we order something small, like a small popcorn versus a jumbo popcorn. Order water instead of soda. And if you're at a restaurant, and you order a meal, yeah, eat it, but you only eat half of it, and then get a takeaway box and save that half for later. And this is something you'll learn when we look into the Canada's food guide. Is it's really important to enjoy what you're eating and to eat it very slowly. Sometimes we're so like on the go, and we gotta hurry, and we're eating, and we really need to stop. Eat slowly. That way, we're not forcing food, and we really need to enjoy our food, eat slowly. And one thing that's actually interesting in the Canada's food guide is it's important to note if you're eating alone or if you're eating with someone, because that factor also plays a role, and we'll talk about that when we get to looking at Canada's food guide in more detail. So to recap, there are lots of things that Canada Food Guides tells us to do, which we will look at some point later on in the course. We also know that if we eat a food from one category only, so if we're eating carbs, which is like donuts and fries only, for example, we're going to get diseases. We are prone. We are at risk for getting diseases. And these are the diseases, they're all listed here: diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cavities, obesity, cancer too. And so there are chapters in the textbook that go over this, which we will look at. Okay, this is interesting. So habits. This is what this is saying, is like the food that we're eating is out of habit. So let's look at some examples. When I was pregnant, even if I'm not pregnant, I sometimes get cravings. And if you get cravings, it's a physiological craving that you're probably getting, where your hormones are in fluctuation. So if you have this craving of like let's say you have to eat peanut butter and crackers every day at 4 p.m. And for 2 weeks, you're eating peanut butter and crackers every day at 4 p.m. That's a physiologic craving that you're having. It's like a phase that you might be going through, and then maybe the next 2 weeks you have a craving to eat something else at the same time. So maybe it's like smoked almonds, for example, at the same time, 4 p.m. for 2 weeks. So this is because you have some fluctuations in your hormones. So it's a physiologic craving. If you look at cultural or traditional, so recently it was our month of fasting, Ramadan. So I'm Muslim, and so we were fasting for 1 month, and then after 30 days-ish, we have a religious celebration called Eid. And in my culture, it's an Indian culture, we would have biryani. And so every Eid, we're always having biryani. It's kind of cultural, kind of traditional. And so this is like a habit. Like every time we have a celebration, we'll have biryani. It could be like, think about Thanksgiving. Everyone has turkey. It's a tradition, right? Turkey for Thanksgiving, cake for birthdays, cookies for Christmas. So these are all traditions that we follow. And then emotional eating is also a thing to keep in mind. Think about if let's say you broke up with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, and now we're eating ice cream out of a tub, right? It's emotional eating, and that's not always healthy. And then social is like, okay, when was the last time you guys went shopping? When you went shopping, did you have a drink in hand? Did you have a Starbucks cup in your hand? We sometimes have this expectation it's a social expectation that we have to hold a Starbucks coffee as you shop around, or we have to nibble on finger foods when we're on a in a party, right? These are social expectations, and so it's sometimes we gotta question ourselves: is this really important? Like, do we really have this craving? Can we eat something healthy? If we're having like a tradition, which is absolutely fine, can we make it healthier? So if we're doing like cakes for birthday, which is a tradition, can we have a small piece instead of a large piece, right? Stuff like that. Yes, you can have the food, but in moderation. Emotional eating, think about why you're eating. Is it emotional eating? And if so, what can you do about it? And again, as we progress through the course, we'll go over lots and lots of examples of how you can stop the bad habits. So interestingly enough, and this is so true for me, that the most craved food that's out there is chocolate. You give me chocolate, I'll eat it all. I have no more, like, don't ever give me chocolate because I'm going to eat all of it and it's not going to be good. So the most craved food is chocolate. But what's a question I saw in the test is that food craving, does everyone have food craving? And the answer is no, not everyone has cravings for food. Most people have them, but there are some people that don't. And when you're pregnant, you can crave very specific and strange foods like I did. So just know that not everyone craves, but most people do, like me. And the most craved food that's out there is chocolate. Okay, so when you're hungry, the body's telling you that, maybe your mood is off and that's why you're hungry. Maybe your blood sugar is low and you need carbs to kind of balance it. Maybe you're lacking something in your body, a specific nutrient, or maybe you're just not emotionally stable and that's why you're eating. So if you're having these cravings to eat, what can you do? Well, exercise. And they say that when you exercise, what happens is it kind of starves off all those sad, depressive feelings, and so cravings will diminish when you exercise. If you have, like what they said here, if you have low blood sugar, it's because you need carbs. And so when you do eat carbs, eat complex carbs and not simple carbs. And when we get to that carbs chapter, we'll look at the difference. But if you look at this picture, you can see complex carbs are healthier compared to simple carbs, which is processed food, right? Like these are all unhealthy foods. So eat the healthy carbs, not the unhealthy simple carbs. Instead of eating 3 meals a day, so breakfast, lunch, and dinner, eat small nutritious meals throughout the day. So we could do that. And if you crave something, that's okay. Eat the craved food, but in modest amount, in moderation. So don't eat the whole birthday cake, or don't eat all 6 donuts. You can eat half a donut, for example. All right, let's look at the digestive system. So I actually reviewed the digestive system when I was doing this PowerPoint, because it's funny how even though I just learned it recently, I forget very easily. So I needed a refresher. So I'm going to explain this in very, very simple terms. What happens is when you eat, here's my mouse. Okay, so when you eat, it goes in your mouth, your teeth are crushing your food, and then the food becomes a ball. And that ball is called a bolus, B-O-L-U-S. That bolus goes down the esophagus, and as it goes down the esophagus, there's like these waves or these muscle contractions that's happening. And that muscle contraction that's happening, it's like contraction and relaxing, it's squeezing the food down. That is called peristalsis. So peristalsis is like the alternating contractions and relaxation which brings the food all the way down to the stomach. Now, just before the stomach, there's something called a sphincter, and I'm going to show you a picture of that when we, as I move through the slide. The sphincter is like, imagine a door. It has to open so that the food can go into the stomach. Once the food goes into the stomach, it gets broken down into chunks, then it goes to the small intestine, then it goes to the large intestine, and then it goes out the rectum, and we kind of poop it out, basically. So large intestine and colon, they're kind of the same thing. Okay, so large intestine, colon, same thing. And I have a video for you to watch so that you can visualize it. There's also liver, gallbladder, pancreas, which play a vital role in the digestive system. And what they actually do is they give out enzymes. And enzymes are really, really important because what enzymes do is they help break down the food, and they also make nutrients. So they also help with the nutrients. So they break down the food and they help deliver the nutrients in our body. So let's look at the digestive system again. So you're chewing food, right? You're chewing a lot of food. And it's really amazing to know that we can chew up to 200 pounds of food. Crazy, right? And so as you're chewing, it becomes into a bolus of food. It goes down the esophagus, and then here's the sphincter. It's like a door that opens and then brings the food into the stomach. So the sphincter admits the food into the stomach. Now, when it's in the stomach, we have something called hydrochloric acid, and this acid kind of helps break down the food into tiny chunks. And then the liver. This is your liver, okay? The liver has bile, and bile gets sent down, and bile is like a fluid, okay? So bile is a fluid that goes in here, and what bile does is it breaks down all the fat and all the protein. So again, it helps with breaking down the food. So bile comes in, enzymes come in, they're all like working hard to break down the food into tiny, tiny pieces. And when it breaks down the food into tiny pieces and it becomes like a mixture, that mixture is called chyme, right here. And so that mixture is known as chyme,